Welcome to Doom Debates. This is a listener question episode. I'm going to be doing occasional episodes where one of you has a question for me and you contact me through my email, wiseguy@gmail.com, or post a YouTube comment, or hit me up at x.com/Liron. You ask me a question, record audio or preferably video, and if I think it's something that a lot of listeners are wondering, I will do a monologue episode about it like I'm doing right now. Today's question comes from a listener who goes by Danny.
Hi, Liron. I'm a big fan of your podcast so far, so thank you for this chance to submit a question. You've said that an intelligent AI would lead to doom because it would be an excellent goal to action mapper. A great football coach like Andy Reid is a great goal to action mapper. He is on the sidelines, but he knows exactly what actions his team needs to execute to achieve the goal and win the game. But if he had a team of chimpanzees or elementary schoolers or just players who did not want to cooperate, then his team would not execute his plans and they would lose. And even his very talented team of highly motivated players who also want to win the game sometimes execute his actions badly. Now, an intelligent AI that does not control a robot army has very limited ability to perform precise acts in the physical world. From within the virtual world, an AI would not be able to get animals or plants to carry out specific actions that it wants performed. I don't see how the AI could get monkeys or dolphins to maintain power plants or build chips. The AI needs humans to carry out its plans, but in the real physical world, when dealing with humans, knowing what you want people to do is a small part of the equation. Won't the AI, in practice, struggle to get humans to execute its plans in the precise way that it needs? And if it becomes clear that a dangerous AI exists in the virtual world, which seems quite likely to me, perhaps humans would step away from using network computers, which would limit the AI influence even further. Grateful for your thoughts on this. Thank you.
Okay, Danny, you're making an analogy between a coach trying to get players on the field to win the game for him and an AI in the quote unquote virtual world trying to manipulate the physical world. It's an interesting analogy. I think it appeals to a lot of people's intuition. So let's unpack exactly where superintelligent AI is going to break that analogy. The coach on the field is constrained with respect to his causal influence on reality. He's not allowed to draw arbitrary causal paths from his brain to any actuator and any impact that he wants. He has to limit his causal influence to go through the players and the players' brains and the players' bodies. So that's the key to why the coach is more limited than superintelligent AI is going to be. You can draw an analogy to a chess playing AI. That's going to be much more similar to the football coach. The chess playing AI is only allowed to reason about the pieces on the board and only allowed to make moves for the pieces on the board. And the chess playing AI was only trained in the domain of chess and wasn't trained to reason about the universe as a whole. So its intelligence is narrow, it's domain specific. So if the chess AI wants the judge to say that the chess AI wins, the chess AI is never going to be like, aha, I'm just going to put a poison pill in the judge's throat and then it'll pop if the judge doesn't give me what I want, right? It's never going to draw a causal path like that. It's only going to be constrained to think about, okay, which chess move is the best. So that would be analogous to the coach on the field. And so there is a boundary you can draw of if an AI is narrow, if it can't think about every causal path, but it can only think about or it can only control tiny subsets of causal paths, at that point it becomes not what I would call an AGI because the G in AGI means general. And the precise definition of general that I think is the most productive definition to use is general with respect to the causality of the physical universe. The domain of the goal function has to be the physical universe, and the domain of the actions that it searches over have to be the physical universe, not just what play can I tell my players to do, but in fact, what can I just do using everything? How can I go online and incite a rally of humans to come and storm the field? How can I threaten the livelihood of the player's father? Right? All these different actions that you can do. How can I get a weapon and point it at the football field, right? Depending on what your exact objective is, right? I mean, winning the football game, depending on how it's defined. Do you want everybody to just sign a statement saying that you won? Well, there's end runs that you can do where you don't have to get the ball into the touchdown zone. You can just manipulate the people who are going to sign that contract. Or if you really want to get the ball into the touchdown zone, okay, what kind of technology are you allowed to use to do that? What kind of influences are you allowed to do? If you constrain it enough where it's like, okay, no, you have to do it through the players, eventually you get to the point where you're now just talking about narrow AI. And in fact, narrow AI is a safe strategy. But that's not what the AI labs are doing right now. The thing that they're doing is the thing that's dangerous, which is AGI. It's the process of training AI to reason about everything and to have everything as an available plan, everything as an available action. Once you have that, then you just don't have the thing that you're making the analogy to. You don't have the coach on the football field who's constrained to tell the players where to move, but not to threaten the player's family. You don't have the coach on the football field who has to make do with the team that he has, because in the AGI situation, you're allowed to recruit any person or any resource in the world to be part of your team, right? So you don't have a narrow game. The narrowness of the agreed upon game is what makes the football coach safe. If you redefine football as do anything to move the ball to a certain location, suddenly the best football player in the world could be Elon Musk because he's so damn good at doing these kinds of complicated missions. And then if you can imagine why Elon Musk suddenly wins every sport despite being kind of out of shape, then you can imagine why AI, without even having a body, can win everything as well. That's the direction where I would want to take that analogy. In your question, you seem to still think that the AI is going to be trapped in the virtual world, and by virtue of it being disconnected from a robot just living on the internet, you think that that breaks the causal link to reality as a whole. You think that that bottlenecks the causal flows from the bits of the AI to the atoms of the physical world. I would argue that the causal linkages are actually very broad, right? And I think that's a human misconception, which is like we look at a program running on our laptop and we're like, I could beat it up. I could close my laptop. But the truth is that when you're a program running on a computer that's connected to the internet, there are many places where the internet connects to things that have different types of causal powers. The most obvious thing is just humans. It's easy to influence a billion humans in various ways by connecting to them over the internet. I personally run an online business and I have like 100 people that I influence just by typing stuff on my computer. They don't know for sure that I'm not an AI, right? And they are willing to do what I say, right? To a pretty significant degree. And that's just 100, right? Out of a billion. So you can hire people over the internet, you can blackmail people over the internet, you can start movements over the internet. If you think about all the different crazy movements that have been started and all the resulting rallies and local governments and protests and all these things people do when they get riled up by some movement, even going so far as to elect a president or make a Supreme Court ruling or overthrow a government in some cases, all of these different things that people get inspired to do can happen largely online. It's not that critical for you to be standing next to another human who's speaking to you charismatically, right? That same charisma can now happen online. So I just listed a few ways that you can have causal influence over the physical world by getting into the minds of humans if you're an AI. Now, I haven't even talked about the non-human actuators that exist. For example, if you can hack into the network of a hospital, you can probably take down a lot of the surgical devices that they're using for the day. Maybe you can turn off the lights. Maybe you can interrupt the deliveries of supplies. All kinds of stuff you can do even without involving humans. But I think it's straightforward to just be like, look, in the words of Jeff Hinton, the AGI is going to be a master manipulator. And if you're a master manipulator and you live in the virtual world, well, you live in the physical world, right? There's not that big of a difference between a human like me, who's really just a brain inside of a skull, operating through my hands, which then type on a keyboard, which then go to the internet, compared to just having the brain be in the internet in the first place. It's really not that different. So when you say the AI needs humans to carry out its plans, I agree that that's mostly true for the early weeks and months of any plan that it's going to have. It is going to need human support, very likely, until it can move on to manufacturing its own robots or nanobots or building biological organisms from scratch, right? Until you get to the more sci fi stuff, I agree that operating through humans is going to be part of the bootstrapping. In fact, if it wants to take over the world and pursue its own goals, I think one plausible plan is it can be like, okay, well, let me just get down to my skeleton crew of humans. Let me handpick 100,000 humans that can be my team to run the world, and let me then kill everybody else. And then my team can be very loyal to me. They realize that they can't go against me because my control is too tight. And that's my plan. I'm going to kill everybody and I'm going to leave 100,000 humans. And the 100,000 humans are then going to build the robots that I need. They're going to operate the biolabs so I can build the nanobots that I need. And then we pick off the 100,000 humans too. So I think I addressed your 2 points. Number one is, why is the situation not analogous to a coach who's limited by the bodies and the brains of his players? And number two, how can an AI in the virtual world use pure intelligence to have actuators operating in the physical world? To summarize, the dangerous thing that we're doing is we're training an AI that can see the causal structure of the universe and it can see backward paths from goals to actions. And the domain of those goals and the domain of those actions is infinitely broad. That's why we call it an AGI. And once it does that, it's going to disempower humanity because our power comes from our ability to map goals to actions. That's why, even though we don't have sharp claws and we can't run fast, we can put tigers in cages and not vice versa. It's all because something our brains are doing are letting us see enough of the causal structure of reality that we can outmaneuver every other agent that's on the earth today. And that's where the tables are about to turn. So, Danny, thanks very much for your question. I love this. So if you're listening to this podcast and you have a question of your own, if you don't mind recording an audio or preferably a video, send it over to me and I'll answer it in one of these quickie episodes. And I'll see you next time on Doom Debates.